All right. So, welcome. This is Creative Action's first State of the Black Health, Mental Health. So, we are live here. I have some amazing Black people in the Austin area community, some amazing Black leaders. We're going to talk about the mental health of Black Austin, Black people, just what's going on. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Every day we turn on the TV, another man is being killed or paralyzed or something by the police. And I know that it is weighing on me. I have this new amazing position at Creative Action as a senior director of racial and equity justice and racial justice. And I can't always respond and do all the things because I am tired. You know, yes, I want to create equity. Yes, I want to create space, but I don't always want to talk about this. I don't always want to have this conversation. So I think tonight we should unpack, talk about how we're doing. We can talk about some action items, some things we can do that's already done. I know tomorrow there's a march on Washington. There's the state of the National Black Convention is tomorrow. There's a lot of things that's happening that we can plug into. But we got to make sure we take care of our mental first before we start moving on the ground. So tonight we have Miss Queen Fadeelah. She is an activist and actress and a hip hop artist. We have Michaela Gibson. She is the founder of Artivism, Black Artivism. We have Yaki Smith. He is the racial justice inclusion, right? What is it? Diversity and inclusion at UT.
Associate Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Moody College of Communication.
See, you know who you are. We have Nakia. She is a community leader here in Austin. She is always speaking out against injustice. So we are going to just dive right in, y'all. How y'all doing?
I'm like, how do we answer that?
Oh, I mean, look, I think we as Black people are really in a constant state of seeing ourselves be executed, of seeing ourselves be criminalized and vilified for just asking to be seen as human. Seeing our daughters, our sisters, our sons, literally, again, being killed by cops or white vigilantes. And although we're seeing this now, it's like, this is not new, right? Mm-hmm. This is really connected to a history of the dehumanization and ultimately what I'm going to call the desire to in many ways make Black people extinct, right? There's all of these quotes always going around saying, oh, what did we do to white America? And I always say, well, we survived, right? Because we never came here to be seen as human. We came here as animals, right? We literally came here to work the land like a goat, a mule, or whoever else is working the land, right? And so then when we were done with that work and we still literally occupy space on a land that they never really wanted us to occupy any real space on, it's difficult for them to even understand what to do with us, right? And we have seen that, because think about this. When you think about slavery being abolished, what happens right after that? Right? You have black codes, you have Jim Crow, you have chain gangs, you have segregate, right? You have all of these other ways to keep Black people in a state of not only servitude, but in a state of being the other, where we are not always going to be seen, or where we never were supposed to be seen as fully human. And so how do we feel is a hard question, because I feel outrage, I feel sadness, I feel in many ways it's almost like you're in a state of, almost, I don't want to say schizophrenia, but it's like you're in this weird space, because in some ways, on one hand, you got to survive, you got to still work, you still have to work with people that may not fully see you as human, right? But on the other hand, you have to go home and like sit with yourself and really, really look at every day the ways in which your Black body again is being just executed in many ways. And so it's really difficult to process, yet this ain't new, right? And so how do I feel? In many ways, I'm saying I don't even know how I should feel because I feel so many different things.
I can relate, and that's why we're having this conversation, to start unpacking these feelings, because I don't even know if we have a space to talk about it. So
I have to talk about how I feel like when we talk about veterans, and we understand that they have PTSD, right? Like post-traumatic stress disorder. They were in a place that they volunteered often to go to, right? They went somewhere that is not even in this country, and they endured violence, or they actually like gave violence to others, right? But then they adapted, they end up getting maladaptive coping mechanisms and coming back over to the US, and this doesn't work here. They're no longer under fire. They're no longer under siege. They're no longer threatened, but those instincts are still there. And I think that with Black folks, people of color, but Black folks especially, we don't get to have post-traumatic stress disorder because we don't get the post. There's no point in time that I exist in America not being Black, not being subject to racism on an individual, interpersonal, a systemic level, right? There's no point where I'm not subject to macroaggressions or microaggressions, or having to worry about, like, are the police going to come and kill me in my sleep? Are they going to, or am I going to be in a protest and like white supremacists are going to come through because they are holding hands with the police, right? Like there's no point in which we are not under siege. And so like, how do we do healing in that? So like the idea that we are constantly under siege means that like it's really hard to be able to regulate, right? Also, we are in COVID, and the same people who are out here being like, oh no, this is a hoax, we're gonna spread all this COVID, are the same people who are white supremacists, because they are seeing the effects of COVID hitting Black and brown populations harder. And they're like, yes, this is great. Let's go ahead and keep that up, right? So like the idea that my existence is somehow a threat to a national world order of white supremacy is taxing. And I'm thinking about buying a firearm for the first time in my life. And I am not a firearms person, right? But the idea that like, I feel like I might be under siege in the place that I live, in my own home, is real hard. And then even when you have people who are allies, there's a lot of folks who are slow learners, right? Like these are good white people, or even good like non-Black POC who are trying to help, and still requiring so much emotional labor, and so much taxing, that it's hard to be around anybody who's not Black for me right now.
Yeah, I'm tired and I'm exhausted. I posted on my social media recently into Jackie Shange, excerpt from her Play for Colored Girls Who Consider Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. One thing I don't need is any more apologies. And that's how I feel. I'm tired of hearing I'm sorry. And I'm tired of people saying how I feel in my experience is in my imagination, because that's what I hear constantly. I've heard constantly since I was a little girl, you know? So I'm tired of that. And what I want to hear are action items. What are we going to do about it? An acknowledgement. I don't know if I'm going to get that. So this space right here is good because, you know, you're not going to always get what you want, you know? So if we don't get that, what are we going to do? You know? And we need to take care of ourselves. So overall, I'm exhausted. I'm angry. And I'm tired of hearing I'm sorry. And that if this is in my imagination, in our imagination.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been a rough week for me with all the stuff that is just going on in America and stuff in my personal life that, I mean, clearly the transition of my brother, and we're talking about the state of the Black mental health. And so this week I'm reminded that this time last year, my brother was in what appeared to be in a manic state. And what I'm reminded of right now is that the lack of resources, um, post-slavery, and how it really have been taking our people through these trauma loops for the past 400 years, and we are not getting the resources that we need to help us be able to show up for ourselves in a powerful way, or even be respected in a way that's humane. And I'm just disgusted. I really am. I have a Black son who's a senior who is interracially dating right now. And it's scary. It's scary to think that because of where we are in America, my son could be targeted. My son is the age of Trayvon Martin, of Mike Brown. Yeah. So I can't really put it into words the terror that I feel within my heart as a Black woman, coming from Oakland, California, and then coming to Austin, Texas, and basically just seeing the same things manifest across America. And how this is a system that they have in place to keep a people like us, the melanated beings, in this space. We were quarantined before the quarantine. I've seen my brothers and sisters feel exactly like what I see the world is feeling like my entire life. So again, I can't really put into words the process of survival, because I'm definitely a refugee from Oakland, California, here now in Austin, Texas, feeling like we trying to escape another war, especially with the Silicon Valley moving from the West Coast to here. So I know I can unpack a lot even on that, and just how I've seen the violence go up since that's happened, and it looks like the same. It looks like the same experiment that they performed on the communities within the Bay Area, and then we saw the violence spark up. We was the number one on the charts for the murder rates, and unfortunately, we see the violence just constantly going up here in Austin, Texas, due to numerous of things, but gentrification being one of those things. So again, we faced with a lot of things here in America. So the state of Black mental health is, yeah, we in a crucial position right now.
Yes, we are. So I guess my next question is, how are we coping, right? I feel like I've been trying to have some normalcy in the pandemic. I'm back home on the East Coast with family so that I can have some sense of, less crazy. And just, my culture. I'm a New Yorker. I'm from Harlem. Being in Austin is a culture shock. So I'm happy to be able to be home, but also just I feel like I'm in prison. I don't like this feeling of limitedness, and so I don't really know how I'm coping. I'm doing a number of different things every day. I'm working out. I draw. I do all the different things, but I haven't gotten to a space where my mental health is where it should be. So what are you guys doing?
I mean, for me, right when the George Floyd protest got to Austin, I sprained my back. I sprained both sacroiliac joints in my back. Couldn't go anywhere for like 3 days. And it really messed me up, not just physically, but the fact that like all of this was happening out in the streets and I couldn't physically move it through my body. I couldn't be out there with people, which I feel like is on some level a way of mental support, being able to see and be with other people making change. Like that is a way to be able to burn off some of that energy. But I couldn't even like do push-ups in my backyard or something like that. Excuse me, because like I just couldn't move. And it really messed me up. And so now I'm able to sit upright, which is helpful. And it's really important for me to be able to move my body in some sort of way, whether it's working out. I bought a kayak because I was like, I need to be outside and I need to be in nature and moving my body on a regular basis. So that's one of the things that I've been doing. And then just like holding on to pockets of joy. So I'm reading a book called The Politics of Trauma by Stacey K. Haynes. It's an amazing book. But everybody's problematic. But it really talks about resilience and the fact that like when you're listening to like your baby cousin's laughter, right? Or like you're eating a delicious meal with family, or you're doing things with intentionality and decadence. It means like it's the little things that make life worth living for, like with the things that you do when you're on your deathbed and you remember, and you're like, oh my goodness, remember that time when we did blah, blah, blah. Like holding on to those pieces and making them happen even more is what I'm doing for my self-care.
Me, I feel like, working out, but then also eating, binging on things that I usually didn't eat, and enjoying my son, but also just as an artist, I've been writing more than I've written in a long time. I've been creating more than I have in a long time, and I feel like there's a power in that. When you look at us as a people, that's in our blood. I mean, when you think about just going back, the trauma of slavery, we were singing in those fields. We were dancing when we were allowed to, and sometimes even when we weren't, and you see this glimpse of expression throughout our journey. And I think there's power in that. But this is the problem. These are temporary moments of relief. I believe in the power of art. That is a platform. That's what my platform is. Artivism, and it's using art to fight oppression and social injustice. But what happens after that when we shed a light on racism or the criminalization of Black hair or what have you? What's being done after that? So that's what I'm doing. But again, this conversation, what we're talking about, this is a temporary relief, and it's going to take all of us to figure out what's going to be the permanent solution, But to answer your question, I've been creating a lot.
Yeah, I will have to agree with that. My creativity is my healing. It is a tool that I use for healing. And so I definitely have been writing, singing, performing, dancing. Most of all, I've been in tune with my spiritual work. I feel like that's the most important thing that I could do for myself, is just being in divine alignment and know that anything that I see that I'm displeased or diseased with, I have the power to transform it. I'm tapping into my power through my pain and really doing the spiritual work. And that's truly what has helped me to push through this year, just understanding that this is all divine alignment, even in the uncomfortability of this reflection, kind of like what you're saying, Don, I'm reminded that there's work to do, and that everything that I see outside of myself, I just create harmony and peace within. And I know I don't always, or we don't always get the results that we desire. But what I'm learning is that all of my happiness and peace come from within, not outward in, but from within. And I reflect that out. And so that's been something that's been allowing me to just be in my power at times when it's hard. It's just remembering that this is a spiritual warfare, and I know what side I'm on.
I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to add to that because I think in many ways, you know, it's interesting because I think what we're all doing is in alignment with what the other one is doing. You know, I mean, I could go into I work out, I do my art, but all of that is true, right? I do all of that. So I don't want to sound like a broken record. I think one of the big things though is it's just, I don't know, it's interesting because I think for me, not only is creating, you know, really healing for me, but also engaging with other people. You know, I can sometimes isolate myself from other people. I think we all are right now, obviously isolated from other people. But I do think that just getting on the phone, you know, with your people, getting on a Zoom call like this, just finding ways to express ourselves. Because I think what happens with us a lot, I know it happens with Black men, you know, Black women as well, but I know Black men, you know, we shut down sometimes. We don't talk, right? Because we really don't understand how to articulate that deep pain that we feel, right? Because we have been taught for so long and conditioned to believe that vulnerability is weakness, that crying it out is weakness, that saying that you are afraid. I think, Fadeelah, you said something about terror earlier, and that's so real because that's really what I think racism and white supremacy does, and that is actually its function, to create terror. That's why I hate when they refuse to call these white guys who are showing up to rallies shooting folks terrorists, right? You quick to call the Osama bin Ladens of the world terrorists, but you don't want to talk about the terrorists that exist on your own soil and the terrorists that you raised, right? And that you in many ways trained to come and terrorize me. And so I think we don't talk about that though, right? Because it's hard. It's just hard to find a way to express that without getting angry, without wanting to, you know, just to be honest with you, wanting to put your hands on somebody, wanting to go out and express yourself in a very physical way because you realize that that's what they're doing to you every day. And so what I'm saying is this, I'm long-winded, but this is what I'm really saying. It's hard to process it. And it's hard to find ways to heal myself because it is constant. It's every day. Just when we thought we made some progress, it's something else, right? Just when we thought, okay, they signed that thing, or this city defunded the police, or you know, maybe you know we might get some politicians in office who might actually try to do something. Then boom, here we got a man literally shot in the back. Then at the protest, you literally got people being murdered by a white vigilante that the cops allow to do said murdering, and they can't lie and say they don't do that because they let the man run by them and didn't even attempt to stop him, right? And so it's constant. So it's hard to find things that heal you because the moment you find something that you think heals you, something else comes on and then that don't work anymore. And so it's honestly, it's just a constant sort of journey of figuring out what healing in a place where you are in, or where you are constantly being terrorized, what does healing in a place like that really look like? And honestly, I'm still trying to figure that out. I think I might just drown myself in work, which is what I do, which is not healthy, right? But again, that's just how I'm able to process what's happening, or at least forget what's happening, because that's really what it is.
But it's hard to forget when we're in this work, right? So this is what our work is. So I know that I meditate a lot and I try to talk to my ancestors. But what are we as the elders on here? What are we doing for our youth? How are we helping them cope? I am a mother, and I have a 9-year-old, and we have these conversations, and I tell her, but then I don't want to burden her with all the problems because she's 9. I want her to be in her 9ness, right, in her youth and enjoy that, but I also want her to be aware. And I wonder if you guys with youth in your life, what are we doing? How are you helping? What are you saying? You mentioned you have a 18-year-old or 17-year-old. Michaela, I know you have a son, Nakia. You have kids in the community, that look up to you. So what are we doing? What are we saying? And how do we help them cope and get through when they have to go to white schools and deal with this and because I know as a youth I was angry, right? So that's not always the answer, because then you being criminalized for being angry.
One of the things that I feel like it's really important to do is to be able to give our youth a framework around race and racism, and not just the interpersonal, but like the systemic, right? So for a while, before COVID, there were several youth undoing racism trainings that were happening, and trying to make sure that our children are able to have a framework so that they realize that this isn't about them, whether individually or just in the school, that this is part of a much larger system, and making sure that they understand the manifestations of race and racism, and how we are expected to play into that with like distancing, with tokenism, with exceptionalism, right? And so that they can see what's going on when they get tagged as the Black kid in class in Austin, and so there's only 2, and the other Black child is not talking to them, right? Like, what are the things that are coming into play, and how do we deal with that, right? So I feel like just being able to give a really strong framework so they understand the dynamics, and then don't feel like they're taking all of that on themselves. That's my biggest one.
And and also I think it's interesting because I'm thinking about what you just said a second ago, Don. This idea of not wanting to burden your child with all of this, but wanting to make your child aware. And I think that's the difficult part, because honestly, it's hard for us not to burden our kids with this. Let's just be honest. That this is where the thing becomes difficult, because guess what? If we don't tell them, they're going to see it anyway. They're going to hear it anyway. They're going to experience it anyway. And so that's the hard balance of being a parent. It's like, how much do you tell them, right? And then how much do you shelter them from? The good thing, Michaela and I have a 4-year-old, right? So he's not fully aware just yet of what this is, right? Although he has already experienced some things with his daycare, right? But luckily, we had to take the brunt of that, right? We are the ones who really felt that pain. I'm sure he felt some of it, but we were able to come and shelter him from that. But when he's a high school student, a middle school student, or even an elementary school student, he will experience this for himself. And so for me, I want to make sure, to Nakia's point, that he understands the framework. He understands how this is systemic. It is not a personal thing. This is systemic. This is something we got to fight together, because ultimately the same thing that you're going to experience, I've experienced, right? I've had the guns pulled out on me by the cops. I've had the cops walk up to me and accuse me of being in a gang because I was wearing a certain color and wanted to arrest me and my boys for that when we were just at the mall hanging out. I've been stopped by the cops for no reason. I've had all of those things happen to me, right? And what I'm trying to do is create a world where my child will not have to experience that. But even thinking of the world in that way becomes so difficult because, again, of the history, right? The history would tell us that these things will repeat themselves, and we will have 5 or 6 years where things are good, 10 years where things are pretty good. And then we may find ourselves actually either right back or worse off than we were before those good years that we had. And so what I'm saying is this: one, with the 4-year-old, I'm still trying to figure out what that balance will look like. Now, in the work that I do, I think one of the main things that I have to do is empower the young people. that are students, right? They have to understand, one, that they have a voice. They have to understand that actually oftentimes their voice is more powerful than my voice. Because when they get together on a campus and they begin to speak out about injustice, and they refuse to go to a class, and they refuse to allow themselves to be used on a football field, right? Things actually begin to happen. And so it is my duty to empower them. It is my duty to stand alongside them. It is my duty, as you said, Nikki, I think that is great. The framework, really understanding the framework, how this works, is systemic. It is not by accident. It is by design. It is not in your imagination. You did not conjure this up in your thinking. This is real. This is true. And they are really coming after you. And so once I let you know that, then I can begin to equip you with the skills and the knowledge so that you can go out and fight these things. And so it is our duty, again, not only to give them the framework, but then to try to find a way to help them solve said issues, right? I'm fighting with you. I'm fighting alongside you. I'm giving you the words to say, but I'm also learning from you, because some of these young people out there, they bad, right? They schooling me every day. I'm listening to them. I'm being inspired by them, being baptized, in revolution by what they have to say. And so I just think it's important that not only do we empower them, but we listen, and that we all meet each other in the middle and we do this work together.
Yeah. Go ahead, Fadeelah.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I have to touch and agree on that. Boop. That it's deep, right? And so after we do that framework, like you said, we gotta have these real conversations, and that's pretty much where I'm at with my son. I don't sugarcoat it for him, because he goes to Westwood. And when I tell people my son go to Westwood, they be, oh, Westwood, he go to Westwood. Oh, I can't believe. You know what I mean? Especially with us coming from California. And it was very interesting even moving into that district as a young girl. When I moved here, I was 24 years old. So first and foremost, I could feel kind of the I felt the racism when I moved into the community. They wanted to know how I, as a young Black girl, could afford that. And then I saw immediately the perception of Black people in Austin, because the perception was that I should not have been able to afford to live in a place like this. And so we must have been doing other things. But like you said, I'm an educator at that time. My husband is a chef, one of the top chefs here at Apple. So it's like, yes, we could afford these things. And also I come from a place where, for me, economically, this is really affordable. But anyway, all that said, I just had to keep it real with my son, because of the area he was able to grow up here in Austin is more of a conservative. And so when some of his friends will go out and do stuff, I had to prohibit my son from those things. And I had to tell him why he couldn't go to his homeboy house and go shoot guns in the backyard as the only Black boy. And yeah, that hurt me to be able to prohibit him from doing that when he asked me, hey, Mom, I want to go out here and do this. But I had to reflect back to him the danger that he could be putting himself in just from trying to be a kid. And it's a sad thing, but I had to just be real with him. So I had to make sure that my son is not oblivious to the danger that he could be putting himself into just from him being himself, So we got to keep it real with these young people and have real conversations if we want them to lead us in this next move. Because if anybody heard the record that me and Chameleon just dropped, that was one of the chants that we put into that song. Ain't no power like the power of the youth. The power of the who? The power of the youth. Because the power of the youth don't stop. And that's something that I understood as a young person, a young organizer. When I was 15 years old, had my voice, and the adults around me empowered me. So I just like to reflect that. It's important that we uplift these young people's voice, because they are the ones who are going to turn this all around. It's not going to be us. We just got to be in space and be able to hold space for these young people when they manifest what they would like to see when they get to the space that we're in. And we got to really support that. And so that's what I encourage in the work that I do with all young people across the board, whether it's within my family, whether it's within the community. I think it's important that these young people know that they have a space to be themselves, but also we keep it 100 with these kids and don't sugarcoat it, and let them know what's really happening out here.
What I was going to say was just thinking about our 4-year-old and in preparing him for being a Black boy and man in this world. I think the biggest thing I can do for him at this point in his life is let him know and give him examples of how Blackness is beautiful. When I work with so many young kids, the babies, and you see in studies where these Black kids, they think, that Black is ugly, their hair is ugly, that they're not good enough. And that right there, I mean, that's racism, that's because of the system. And I remember, I just reflect on when I was younger and when I was put in positions where I was the only Black girl. And I always talk about when I was on, I got a scholarship to play tennis. I was the only Black girl. And the teacher never said anything. She would say all the little girls are pretty. I was never pretty and all that. And I would feel a certain kind of way there. But when I left, I grew up in the AME church, was just blackety Black. I was surrounded by a beautiful Black community that reminded me that I was beautiful. My hair was beautiful. I was good enough. I was talented. So it didn't matter what anybody else said because I had a community that had my back. So my son has already been in situations where he's been the only Black kid. And like he said, I don't know, it might have impacted him. We don't know because he's still so young. But right now, what I'm trying to teach him is that he's good enough. His hair is beautiful. He's beautiful. His culture is beautiful. And so when he gets older, nobody can make him think otherwise. And there's power in that because when you know that you're good enough, you know that you're beautiful and that you can do all things through God or whatever your beliefs are, then there's power in that. That confidence will help you unconquer. So that's what I'm doing right now for my son. And then when I work with the little ones, through Creative Action, I work with the little ones at Campbell. The last, when we were working in person, the last share we did, it was all about identity, and who they are, loving who they are, and I told them to dress in whatever clothes made them feel like they looked good, that they were beautiful or handsome, what have you. And they came, they shine, and the name of their people is I love myself, because there is power in loving myself. So as far as the little ones are concerned, I think we start there. When they know that they are beautiful and they're good enough, then as they get on, and when people and this world just try to beat them down and try to convince them otherwise, they can say, no. I already know I know that I'm good enough. So that's what I'm doing with my son and with the little ones I work with.
Yeah, can I say something to that? I think that's so important because when you don't feel worthy, you
Oh yeah, Key, I think we lost you. You were saying something powerful there.
But he's in the other room. You froze up. Probably because we both on the internet.
You was preaching, Michaela.
Yes, you were.
Well, while we get your feedback,
you can come in here if you want to.
He might have to.
Look, he was talking about that worthiness. Go in there, my brother, about that worthiness.
That's right. we have a elementary school teacher on the east side, and she said that she really appreciates the transparency of us having these courageous conversations. And then we have a question that I want to ask when Yaqui comes back. But yeah, this is amazing, y'all. I think this is what we need. All right, we got Yaqui back here.
Sorry, I don't know what happened.
All right.
Okay.
But all I was gonna say is, I just think when you don't know who you are, people can make you think that their standards, not only of beauty, but of professionalism, the way you talk, the swagger you have, right? They make you believe that there is something wrong with what you authentically bring to a situation, because nobody has actually taught you that you can come into a space the way that you are, right? Now, here I am. You can't see them all tatted up and down. I go to work on this on sometime, and I'm the associate dean, right? And I'm saying that to say this: I don't have to change who I am to do this work. As a matter of fact, me being who I am is what makes me the unique person that you want to be in the space to do the work, right? If everybody around the table looks the same, talks the same, has the same, sort of ideological framework or whatever, then things get stale and boring, right? So not only do we got to teach the kids to authentically love themselves, but another thing we got to teach. I remember when I was in second grade, I had a teacher, white woman, did some stuff to me, and I'll never forget, in front of the whole class, you know what I said? I said, you know what, you're racist. And I let her know that. And I got sent to the principal's office. They called my mom. And of course, in the room, your mama got to do the thing, But when I got out, my mama was proud. You know what I mean? And I say that because of this. The reason why I was able to even say that is because I understood racism even then, because it had been taught to me, right? I was exposed to the Asadas and the Angelas and the Hueys and the Malcolm X's and the Martin Luther Kings and the Harriet Tubmans and the Ida B. Wells, right? I was exposed to those people as a child, right? I was around my uncles who had been in the Black Panthers, who had helped start sort of social and political movements in San Antonio, Texas, a grandmother who was in the Nation of Islam. I was raised around that. I was raised not only loving my Blackness, but understanding that there was a part of me that always had to be a Black revolutionary in order to be able to walk through the earth unapologetically myself. And so I think it's important that we begin to teach our babies that, right? Even at 4 years old, again, there's not a whole lot that he understands, but he understands this. Daddy Black, daddy proud, and you're going to be Black and proud as well. And the older he gets, to my wife's point, not only are we going to continue to teach him about loving himself, but we're going to continue to teach him who he is and how special he is and how unique he is. And no matter how much they try to shoot you, kill you, do whatever you want to do, they want your lips, they want your booty, they want your music, they want your food, they want all of it, because they keep taking it, stealing it, repurpose it, and selling it back to yourself, because you don't even understand it. You created it first. And so we got to teach our babies who they are, 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 and empower them. Because when they walk into a space again and somebody tries to make them feel like they're not worthy, they need to be able, in the middle of all a sea of whiteness, stand up and say, wait a minute, I'm Black, I'm proud, and you can't make me feel no kind of way about who I am, because you didn't make me, you can't break me, and if you keep on trying to play with me, I'm going to come for all of you. That's just who we got to train our babies to be activists. That's what it is.
I'm about to catch the Holy Ghost.
Hold on. I got some. Why I'm putting on some praise break music for y'all right now? No lie. Yes. I said, if y'all gonna Michaela and Yaqui just gonna back to back it like that and just set it all up.
Yeah. Listen, I feel like that's so important. Also teaching our history, like when you said the Malcolms, you know the Martins. I just the amazing thing that our Campbell kids did for the Black History Show, right? The kids that were said they couldn't read or they couldn't sit down and behave. They did a hell of a show talking about doing the will of Blackness. Then so they want to know who they are. They want to. They are proud of who they are. And as long as we keep having things like that and keep creating stuff like that, they're gonna do. Okay, I'm trying to read what people are saying. Yes, y'all, we are here. So we almost over time. So I'm going to wrap this up. We got 2 questions. We have what is Black joy to you? And then I want you guys to talk about a little bit of what you do so we can follow you and how, why are you important to this conversation and why people should follow you. And we're going to wrap up.
I love the question, what is Black joy? And one of the things that I love about Black joy is that it is resistance, right? Like, it is beautiful, it is contagious, and it is the thing that is worth living for, right? That thing that I was talking about before, where it's like, oh, we had to bring in those pieces and remind ourselves why we're here and why it's so important for us to be here. And I think that is one of the biggest things. One of the things that I really like to do is I like to ask people about what does liberation taste like? What does it smell like? What does it look like? What does your version of liberation look like? And when I ask Black people that, like, that joy comes up, right? And like, my version of liberation is a block party. It looks like a block party. It smells like weed and nagtampa and ribs, and it tastes like pecan pie, but it also tastes like samosas because we in a multicultural neighborhood. All the brown people are getting down, right? It sounds like little Black children running in my yard, right? About to pick some daisies and pick some apples off the tree in my backyard. It sounds like the joyful laughter, the joyful careless laughter of people who don't have to worry about police, who ain't even thinking about police, who don't even think about them at all, haven't thought about them last year, didn't think about them this year, right? Like the carefree joy of people who know that, like, we have all that we need, that we are abundant, that abundance is our natural state, right? And that we are going to glory in it, and that we love each other, and we are so in love with each other that it's like this circular thing that, like, I'm in love with you, no, you in love with me more, and like it just keeps going back and forth, right? Like we see all that beauty in each other. So that's to me what Black joy is like.
Woo! Black joy. That was beautiful, by the way. I felt like that was a piece. I'm over here like, yes, we have to record that. Black joy for me is waking up and knowing, even outside of myself, that I'm appreciated, waking up and not kind of like piggybacking off what sis just said, not feeling the terror of me just being me and being able to appreciate all of me on all levels, right? Because we know that we have a very special culture, and like you said, from the highs and lows to, pouring out a little liquor, because I'm from the hood, right, in Oakland, and we have a lot of pride within our hood, and I could appreciate that because it helped me to understand through that community what I can manifest, that hood pride and that love. And it manifested so much community. And unfortunately, we had to create that community in terror. But Black joy looks like an unterrorized community that comes together because we want to, not because we forced to be in these hoods and forced to be in these urban areas, but because we want to. And us coming here, we manifest all the beauty that we are on all levels, and it's appreciated and it's celebrated. And we could walk around confidently, just knowing that we can be ourselves. I mean, if that feels like too much to ask for. And so that's what Black joy looks like to me.
I'm hearing Black joy. I'm hearing, everyone talking about community, and it's interesting because recently someone asked in one of the meditations that I was doing, what does think of a moment where you experienced like Black joy, and immediately I thought about when I was a little girl, and I thought about, again, spirituality is important to me. I'm a preacher's kid, and I thought about a moment in Black church. We would have this rites of passage, and it was so beautiful. Everyone would come in with their African garments on, and it would be dancing and singing, and the elders, these old ladies coming over, the young people, and just putting their hands on you and praying, and they're speaking life, in you. And that moment came to mind in this meditation when they asked, think of a moment where you had Black joy. And when I think about that, that was a moment where what I'm hearing everyone say is safe. I felt safe. The elders putting their hands on me and speaking life, in my future, in my present, just knowing that I'm a child of God, and with that alone, there's power. And just with, all the culture, the African garments and the drumming and the dancing, it was beautiful, that Black joy to me, just being me, with no limits, no matter what,
Yeah, it's it's interesting because I wanted to say Black joy is joy, and what I mean by that is I think we have to remember that no matter what is happening around us, no matter um, how under attack we are, that we have to find peace and joy within ourselves. Because if we let what's happening out there consume us, you got to think about this. We would all be walking around angry all the time. We would not be able to function in the world. We would not be able to have families, honestly, because we would be destroying each other, because we would bring all of that anger and that strife and that confusion into our homes. And so I think simply it's joy. It's finding joy in the midst of all of this drama, in the midst of all of this chaos that we have to deal with. It's finding something that makes you laugh, that makes you smile. It's being in constant communication with God, with your creator, of really allowing God to speak into you. Because for me, that's where I get my joy from. Because as they always say, the world didn't give it to me, the world can't take it away, right? That's a church thing. But it's true, right? Because ultimately the world is dishing out some stuff that is traumatic, right? So I must find something that is beyond this world, that goes beyond the thing that I see every day, to actually fill me with the joy that will allow me to go out and conquer the things that I have to face every single day of my life, because these things are not going anywhere. And I love the party, right? You talked about the party where we smelling the ribs, and I'm a professor, so I can't talk about that other stuff you were talking about. But we need that, right? We got to find those moments where we could just lay back and be ourselves. That's another thing. Just being around your people and being able to be yourself is so much joy. I remember when I was in New York, I was living there doing a show, and I went down, I forget what parade I was at, but I'm from Texas, so I don't think I have been around that many Black people in a minute. But that brought me so much joy. I don't even like going to places that long. I was out there for hours. They were dancing in the street. They were eating. They were selling stuff. We were just talking. Wasn't no drama. We were just being Black, beautiful, and full of joy. And that's what brings me joy. When I could be around my people and just lay back and be myself. I need it. So we need to mask up. I don't know how we're going to do this during COVID, but we need that. We need a meeting place where we could just be us.
Well, I feel like this is Black joy for me right now. I love it. I love community. And when you mentioned New York, and that parade was probably the African American parade in Harlem, that is what Black joy is to me. Growing up there, right, around the Mecca of Blackness, just having fun, going to school with teachers that looked like me, who celebrated me, who told me about Kwanzaa, and we did plays, and we read books. And I remember reading Nikki Giovanni in the 4th grade, like really seeing who I was Black joy to me. That is seeing me and being represented is Black joy. But yes, I love playing spades. I love ribs. I love the party. I love, turning up. So that is also Black joy. Yes, I feel like we need community. Community is, and being ourselves. I agree with you, Yaki. I need to be with myself, and nobody asks me a question about my hair. Nobody asks me why I got this earrings on, why I got this, and why this and that. Woo! You know, I need to. You know, that's important. All right, y'all. So, last thing, just give me a brief synopsis, of who you are, your social media, how we can figure out what you're doing in the community, and if you got some next steps for coping, or you have something, small words to say, go on. But put your if we're gonna put your social media up so people can follow you, and talk about some projects you got coming. I know we're artists as well, so let's put that out there and let's promote ourselves. And y'all follow them, follow.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just go first. I just relaunched my website, exodusfilmworks.com. You can find all of my work there. I just launched my or released a web series that I shot during quarantine called The Pandemic Chronicles. The first 2 episodes are online, and over the next 2 weeks, we'll be releasing the other ones. So yeah, just check me out, exodusfilmworks.com. Again, you can find me on Facebook, Yaki80, Instagram, Yaki80, and Exodus Filmworks, and just keep in touch with me, because ultimately, I also think that as Black people, we have to support each other, because sometimes we don't do that. Let's just be real. We don't oftentimes. I don't want to say oftentimes, we do that a lot, but sometimes we don't. I'm gonna just say that. And so we don't need to be hating on each other. We need to love each other. We need to watch each other's stuff. We need to share it, because if we don't do it, who is going to do it? And we've seen that historically, that we oftentimes have waited for others to validate us, right? We didn't validate ourselves. So let's validate each other. Let's love on our brothers and our sisters. Buy that painting, buy that mixtape, download that album, listen to that podcast, watch that movie, because we need each other, because that's the only way, again, that we're going to continue to see the progress that we need to see. There is strength in numbers. And I think the one thing, I know I got to go, but the one thing that white supremacy is really good at, and they have known it from the beginning, is dividing and conquering. And they have all kinds of ways of doing it, because they know that if they tear us apart, that they can control and destroy us. So let's stop letting them do that. Let's get together. Let's love on each other, and let's support each other.
I'll do the things. So my name is Nikia. What I do is I look at power dynamics and social systems through an anti-racist lens, and also do business analysis. So I do consulting work, specifically anti-racist consulting, and workshops, but I'm also doing some other community stuff right now. So one of the things, I guess the best way that you can follow me is I'm helping AJC do a series on imagining the world without police. And so our next one is going to be talking about over-policing in schools. That's going to be next Wednesday, and you can follow it on AJC's site. After that, we're going to do just over policing in general. But the idea is that we're talking about the intersection of policing and trauma, because they bring trauma. One of the other things that I'm doing that I'm going to put in the chat is I'm working with a group called Help for Healing. And so it's specifically for Black and Indigenous people of color to be able to find, give, and receive therapy, right? Like being in Austin, trying to figure out therapy is really hard. So whatever that therapy looks like, right? So one of the things that I'm doing, I think it's on the 16th of September, is me and my girl Tiffany are doing a grounding that's around decadence. It's just okay, let's just get a moment for ourselves, just an hour, to be able to figure out how are we going to ground and connect with other Black and Indigenous folks, right? Just to get out of Austin, because it comes with you into your house. It's awful. And then I'm doing mutual aid work with Communitas and some other programs. So you might see me around, but those are the best 2 ways to kind of keep track and follow me online.
HAC is Austin Justice Coalition. Just sorry, people didn't know that.
Hello. So everyone can follow me at Queen Dealah, the real Queen Dealah, on Instagram. You can follow me at Queen Dealah 115, and Queen Dealah is spelled on here for those who maybe are listening to this. Dealah spelled Deelah. I'm doing a lot of amazing work with Creative Action. I will be reaching out to some of you artivists to do some cool projects for the young people. So please be looking out for those invites. We have some amazing things that we would like to do during this time to impact families, especially here on the East Side. Also in my personal work, again, I just released a record with my brother, Long Live Chameleon King, here advocating for mental health. He was someone who was going through some mental health issues. So I'm someone here to advocate through my art, through my music, to help raise awareness for young Black and Brown people across America so that we can get the resources that we need, again, based off the real issues that we're facing. So you'll see a lot of that stuff on my social media. Right now, what you can catch is the Art Heals Festival. I am a part of that with Tariq Daniels. It actually launches tonight. So after we get off here, please go to the Art Heals, what'sinamira.org, and try to catch as much of that as you can. I think it'll be streaming for the next hour. It'll also be streaming tomorrow night from 6 to 8, and then Saturday from 6 to 8. And I will be closing out this ceremony with a tribute to my brother. So again, I'm out here doing amazing things, just being the transformation that I want to be on many levels, from in the schools to my personal work. So y'all tune in. Queen Dealah.
And I like your song, Dealah. I love it. I love it. I listened to it yesterday. I'm gonna
Thank
call
you.
you. So Michaela Gibson, I'm a actress and writer, and I work with my husband a lot. But I also recently started a platform called the Black Artivist Collective. Artivism is something I've been passionate about for years. A professor in college back in 1999 introduced me to artivism because he had been working with some artivists in Los Angeles, and so it's something I've been passionate about for a long time. And I decided earlier this year to put the Black Artivist Collective out, and it's a blog and a podcast. I interview artists who are using their work to just combat, social injustice and oppression and issues facing the Black community. And so the first podcast featured Yaki. He talks a lot, as you can see, so it's part 2 that's coming out next week. And then we also have playwright and actor Jordan Cooper out in New York. He's going to be on one. Nadine Marissa, who is an artivist. She uses her platform. She's from The Walking Dead, but she uses her platform to celebrate Black women and Black actresses. And I have some other people that are going to be popping up. So yes, you can visit the blackartivistcollective.com. All social media is the Black Artivist Collective. And then my personal, Michaela Gibson, everywhere. That's Mikala, Gibson with a B.
All right, y'all. I thank you so much. This was amazing. Let's continue to have the conversation. Let's continue to do the work. We can do this together. This is only how it works if we continue to do this together. Like I said, this is Black joy for me. I'm so happy to be in a space with people with like-minded, who look like me, who want to do the work. So let's continue to have this conversation. Thank you for all you do in the community. Thank you for last minute coming up with this. We never can predict when the police are going to shoot us. So we got to act and, say some things. And I want to imagine a world without the police. I want to police ourselves. So yes, follow. I post all social media here. Everybody's social media is here. Please follow. Thank you guys for listening. This was amazing. You guys are amazing in what you do. Please look out for more to come. The next one we're going to have some teams on here. So we're going to have the team perspective on what's going on in our community. Thank you guys. Any last thoughts? Any last thing you want to say before we end this broadcast?
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Creative Action, and thank you for connecting all of us. It was beautiful to experience your joy and your wisdom, and I'm so honored to be a part of this circle. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ditto. Same thing. Thank you.
Yes.
Great.
All right, y'all.
Thank you, Don. Yeah. This
All
was
right, y'all. Let's keep this. Bye, Facebook. Bye, YouTube.
Bye.